Hello everyone and welcome to Lucid Mind. This is Majid and in today's video I brought you another multiple choice paper from Cambridge O-Level Chemistry. Today I'll be solving paper 1 variant 1 from May-June 2020. If you need to go to any specific question, just follow the link given in the video description. So without wasting any time, let's just begin the paper. Question number 1. The diagram shows 4 pieces of apparatus that are used to measure the volume of a gas or liquid. Which piece of apparatus should always be filled to the same level? So we have to find the one that is always to be filled to the same particular level. There are 4 options given. A is burette, B is gas syringe, C is measuring cylinder and D is pipette. As we can see in A, B and C, a lot of divisions are given. So we can use a particular volume or any volume of our need. But in D you can see that there is only one division that is given, so it means that the volume in D is fixed. So therefore, in order to take the volume in pipette, it should always be filled to this level. A pipette could be of 20 cm³ or of 25 cm³, but you cannot take the volume less than this. So therefore answer is D. Question 2. Copper sulfate is prepared by reacting excess copper carbonate with dilute sulfuric acid. Which 2 pieces of apparatus are needed to obtain copper sulfate crystals by this reaction? Now, in order to prepare the crystal, we first need to make a supersaturated solution and then just leave it to dry. One is thermometer. We don't need to monitor the temperature in this reaction, so therefore thermometer is not needed. 2 is evaporating basin. As we need to evaporate the supersaturated solution, so therefore this is needed. 3 is filter funnel. In the question they have given the excess copper carbonate. So it means at the end of the reaction, excess copper carbonate will be left behind. So in order to remove that excess, we need filter funnel. 4 is gas syringe. As there is no measurement of gas in this reaction, we are just making crystals, so therefore gas syringe is not needed. So only option 2 and 3 are correct, so therefore answer is C. Question 3. A paper chromatography experiment is carried out to find an RF value of iron plus 3. The result is shown. This is the experimental diagram. To make the spot containing iron plus 3 more visible, the paper is sprayed with aqueous sodium hydroxide, so that the precipitate of iron 3 hydroxide forms. Under the conditions of the experiment, the RF of iron plus 3 is given by dash and the color of the precipitate is dash. So we have to find the RF value. RF is actually the retention factor and it is equal to the distance traveled by the spot. This is a spot and the distance should be taken from the starting line. So it is distance traveled by a spot divided by the distance traveled by the solvent. As in the diagram they have measured the distance traveled by the spot is x and the distance traveled by the solvent is given by y. So RF will be equal to x divided by y. Now second part is the color of the precipitate. So as we know that the precipitate formed is iron 3 hydroxide. So iron in plus 3 form is always reddish brown in color. So therefore gap 1 is x divided by y and gap 2 is the reddish brown color. So therefore answer is A. Question 4. Aluminum chloride is dissolved in water and the resulting solution is divided between 3 test tubes. Now this is test tube 1, 2 and 3. Which row gives the reagents for 3 tests which could be used to confirm the presence of aluminum chloride? As we know that in aluminum chloride there are 2 types of ions. One is aluminum ion and second is chloride. On adding aqueous sodium hydroxide, few drops white precipitate is formed. While adding excess sodium hydroxide, this precipitate dissolves. For aqueous ammonia, again white precipitate is formed, and this white precipitate is insoluble in excess. For the identification of chloride ion, we can add dilute nitric acid along with silver nitrate aqueous. Now what will happen that this silver ion will react with chloride ion to form AgCl white precipitate. So therefore these three tests can be used for the identification of aluminum chloride. Let's move to the options. A says in test tube 1 we have aqueous sodium hydroxide, so it could be used. In test tube 2 again aqueous ammonia, so this can also give positive result. In test tube 3 we have dilute hydrochloric acid and aqueous silver nitrate. Now we are not going to use hydrochloric acid, but instead of hydrochloric acid we use nitric acid. B, aqueous sodium hydroxide, then we have dilute nitric acid and aqueous silver nitrate. This is also correct for chloride ion. Test tube 3 we have dilute hydrochloric acid, so this is not used. In C we have aqueous ammonia, correct. Dilute nitric acid and aqueous silver nitrate, also correct. And in test tube 3 we have nitric acid and barium nitrate. Now this is not used, therefore it is wrong. In D we have aqueous sodium hydroxide, correct. Aqueous ammonia, yes. And in test tube 3 we have dilute nitric acid and aqueous silver nitrate. So all three options are correct, so therefore answer is D. Question 5. Which statement about methods of purification and analysis is correct? A. A liquid that boils over a range of temperature may still be 100% pure. Now for purity, the liquid must boil at a fixed temperature, not over a range of temperature, so therefore this is incorrect. B. An insoluble substance may be separated from water by crystallization. We don't need crystallization process for insoluble substance, we can use filtration because crystallization is used for something that is highly soluble. So this is also incorrect. C is chromatography may only be used to separate colored substances. We know that we can use chromatography for colorless substances such as amino acids, so therefore this is also incorrect. D. Liquid air can be fractionally distilled, giving oxygen as one of the products. In liquid air we have nitrogen, oxygen and other gases are present, so therefore we can use the fractional distillation process in which each gas will be separated based on its boiling point. So therefore this is correct one. So therefore answer is D. Question 6. Which change in pressure and temperature would both result in a decrease in a volume of fixed mass of gas? As we know that when pressure is increased, what happens that the molecules in the gas come close together. So therefore pressure is inversely proportional to the volume. And temperature is actually the kinetic energy of the molecule. So when we increase the temperature, what happens that the volume increases because the molecules have more kinetic energy and there are more spaces between them. So if we want to decrease the volume, we should increase the pressure and decrease the temperature. So we can see in the option C, they have given increase the pressure and decrease the temperature. So therefore C is correct. Question 7. Which definition of isotopes is correct? A. Atoms of different elements. Actually isotopes are the atoms of the same element. So therefore this is incorrect. Atoms of the same element which have the different number of electrons. Now number of electrons does not define isotopes, it is actually the number of neutrons. So therefore this is incorrect. D says atoms of the same element having different number of neutrons. So this definition is correct. Answer is D. Question 8. Which ion has the most shells that contain electrons? So we have to find the number of shells. In order to find the number of electrons, we first must know about the atomic number. So the atomic number of aluminum is 13. Atomic number of beryllium is 4. Nitrogen is 7. Sulfur is 16. As the charge on aluminum is +3, so it means there are 3 electrons lost. So therefore number of electron is 13 minus 3, 10. And in first shell we will have 2 electrons, and in second shell we will have 8 electrons. So therefore there are 2 shells for aluminum plus 3 ion. The atomic number of beryllium is 4, so in order to find the number of electrons we have 4 minus 2 because the charge is plus 2, so only 2 electrons are left, so we'll have just one shell containing 2 electrons. The atomic number of nitrogen is 7 and there is minus 3 charge, so the number of electrons will be 7 and 3 becomes 10. So there will be 2 shells. In first shell we will have 2 electrons and second shell we will have 8 electrons. In sulfur the atomic number is 16 and the charge is minus 2, so the number of electrons will be 16 and 2, 18. And there will be 3 shells. In the first shell we will have 2 electrons, in the second shell we will have 8 electrons, in the third shell we will have 8 electrons. So therefore answer is D. Question 9. Which substance conducts electricity both when solid and when molten? A. An alloy. As alloy is made up of metals, so therefore metals are good conductors in solid form and also good conductors in molten form. As there are free electrons in metals, so they can easily conduct current. B is a hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon is both bad conductor in solid form and in molten form. C is a metal oxide. Metal oxide is also a bad conductor because in metal oxide ionic bond is present and metal has lost its electrons to the oxygen atom. So therefore this is also incorrect. D is a salt. A salt is made up of positive and negative ions. So therefore salt is bad conductor in solid state, but it is a good conductor in molten form. So therefore option A is correct. Question 10. Which substance is an ionic compound? Now ionic compound is formed between metal and non-metal, and metals are from group 1 or group 2 usually, and non-metals are from group 6 or 7. Group 1 and 2 lose electrons to group 6 and 7 and therefore ionic compound is formed. A is ammonia. Ammonia is made up of nitrogen and hydrogen, as both are non-metals, so therefore this is incorrect. B is calcium chloride. Calcium is from group 2, so it is a metal. Chlorine is from group 7. Therefore ionic compound is formed between calcium chloride, so this could be the correct option. C is ethanoic acid. In ethanoic acid we have CH3COOH. All are non-metals, so therefore covalent bond is present. D is hydrogen chloride. In hydrogen chloride, hydrogen and chlorine are present and both are non-metals, so therefore covalent bond is present. So the only option in which ionic bond is present is B. Question 4. The dot and cross diagram of 4 compounds is shown. Which diagram is correct? Note that the only outer shell electrons are shown. Now we can find the correct option by looking at the outermost shell electrons first and then seeing whether the octet is complete or not. A is CH4 and carbon has 4 electrons in the outermost shell while hydrogen has 1 electron in the outermost shell. So carbon is making 4 single covalent bond with 4 hydrogen atoms, so A seems to be correct option. In B we can see that carbon is making single covalent bond with another carbon atom and there are 3 electrons in the outermost shell of carbon, which is incorrect, and there are 3 electrons for this carbon atom, so therefore B is wrong. In C you can see carbon is having 4 electrons in the outermost shell and it is making double covalent bond with this oxygen and double covalent bond with this oxygen, so carbon is correct. Oxygen is from group 6 of the periodic table, so therefore it must have 6 electrons in the outermost shell, and you can see they have given just 4 electrons for oxygen, so therefore oxygen is incorrect, and same for this oxygen, it is also incorrect. In D we have hydrogen, and hydrogen just have 1 electron in the outermost shell and they have given 7 electrons, so D is also wrong. So the correct option is A. Question 12. Element X has a lattice of positive ions and C of electrons. We can see the structure. Which property will X have? As in this structure, we can see there are positive ions and negative sea of electrons, so therefore it is from metal. Now we can find the properties of metal. A. It conducts electricity by the movement of ions and electrons. Now metals only conduct by the movement of electrons, not by ions, so therefore this is incorrect. B. It has a high melting point. As we can see, there are a lot of positive charges and negative electrons, so therefore there are very strong forces of attraction between the positive and negative charges, so therefore it has high melting point. This is correct. C. It is decomposed by an electric current. Now metal is not decomposed by an electric current, it actually can conduct electric current. D says it is not malleable. Malleable means it can be converted into sheets. So metals are malleable, so therefore this is also incorrect. So the only correct option is B, high melting point. Question 13. A chicken egg has a mass of 60 gram. The eggshell is 10% of the total mass. The eggshell is made of calcium carbonate. What is the mass of calcium in eggshell? There will be two steps for this solution. In first step we have to find the mass of eggshell, and in second step we can find the mass of calcium present in the eggshell. Now they have given that eggshell is 10% of the total mass. It means it is 10 grams out of 100 grams. Now first finding the mass of shell, we have egg ratio shell. As eggshell is 10%, so it is 10 and egg is 100. Now given mass of egg is 60 grams, so we can write 60, and in 60 grams egg how much shell will be present, so we can find by cross multiplication. So x will be equal to 60 into 10 divided by 100, so it will be 6 grams. Now eggshell is made of calcium carbonate, and we have to find calcium in calcium carbonate, so therefore we can take the ratio between calcium carbonate. First finding the atomic masses from the periodic table, we have 40 for calcium and 40 plus 12 plus 48 equals to 100 for calcium carbonate. So it means if we have 100 grams of calcium carbonate, we will have 40 grams of calcium present. Now we have actually 6 grams of calcium carbonate, so therefore in 6 grams how much calcium will be present, so we can cross multiply and find the value of x. So x will be equal to 40 into 6 divided by 100, and it is equal to 2.4 grams. So therefore mass of calcium present in eggshell is actually 2.4 grams. Question 14. Ethanol can be made by the reaction shown. Ethyl bromide reacts with sodium hydroxide to form ethanol and sodium bromide. If 5 grams of C2H5Br produces 1.59 grams of ethanol, what is the molar percentage yield of ethanol? Now they have given the molecular masses. So the molecular mass of C2H5Br is 109 and ethanol is 46. As the question is in between C2H5Br and C2H5OH, we can see that according to the balanced chemical equation, the molar ratio is 1:1. So C2H5Br ratio C2H5OH, according to balanced equation, the molar ratio is 1:1. Now we have to find the number of moles from given mass and molecular mass. For C2H5Br, the moles will be, moles is equal to mass in grams. Mass in grams is 5 gram divided by molecular mass, which is 109. It is equal to 0.0458 moles. Similarly for ethanol, we can find the number of moles. So moles for ethanol will be, mass in grams is 1.59 grams divided by molecular mass given is 46. So therefore number of moles are 0.0345 mole. So we can write 0.0458 for ethyl bromide and 0.0345 for ethanol. As we have to find the molar percentage yield of ethanol, so it will be equal to the number of moles of ethanol divided by number of moles of ethyl bromide, multiply by 100 as it is the percentage. So the molar percentage yield will be equal to the number of moles of ethanol, 0.0345, divided by number of moles of ethyl bromide, 0.0458 into 100. So the answer is equal to 73.5%. So therefore answer is D. Question 15. An aqueous solution contains 0.01 moles of zinc plus 2 and 0.01 moles of copper plus 2. Aqueous sodium hydroxide is added until in excess. After shaking, the mixture is filtered. What remains on the filter paper? As in the reaction, both zinc plus 2 and copper plus 2 are reacting with sodium hydroxide, so we have to find which one makes a precipitate. When zinc plus 2 reacts with sodium hydroxide, it forms zinc hydroxide, and this precipitate is soluble in excess of sodium hydroxide. Similarly, when copper plus 2 is reacted with sodium hydroxide, what happens that a blue precipitate of copper hydroxide is formed, and it is insoluble in excess, so it is in solid form. Now in the solution we have both zinc hydroxide aqueous and copper hydroxide solid. After filtration, what happens that the solid is left behind on the filter paper and zinc hydroxide goes through the filter paper. Now moving towards options, we have 0.01 mole of white hydroxide, which was formed on few drops of sodium hydroxide, and 0.01 mole of a blue hydroxide. So white hydroxide is now become soluble, so therefore it is not present on the filter paper, it is actually gone into the solution. On filter paper, insoluble blue hydroxide is present. B says 0.01 mole of white hydroxide, this is not present. C says 0.01 mole of a blue hydroxide, this one is correct. D says no solid residue, so this is also wrong because copper hydroxide is in solid form. So the option that is correct is C. Question 16. Which arrangement is used to electroplate copper onto a steel key? Now for electroplating, there are few points that you must remember. First one is that anode always dissolves. Second point is that the solution must be similar to that of anode. For example, if anode is made up of copper, then the solution must be of soluble copper ions, such as copper sulfate. Third option is that the substance that needs to be electroplated, for example this key, this must be made as cathode. So we have copper as anode and key as cathode. So let's move towards the options. The electrolyte must be of copper, so it is aqueous copper to sulfate, this is correct. Anode must be made up of pure copper, so it is correct. And cathode must be of the steel key, so it is also correct. So therefore option is A. Question 17. The rate of reaction between calcium carbonate and hydrochloric acid is measured in 3 separate experiments. In experiment 1, the calcium carbonate is powdered and an excess of HCl is used. In experiment 2, the calcium carbonate is in lumps and an excess of HCl is used. In experiment 3, the calcium carbonate is in lumps but insufficient hydrochloric acid is used. The results of these experiments are shown. On y-axis we have mass reading, on x-axis we have time. Now let's find out which experiment is the fastest. In experiment 1 we have powdered calcium carbonate and excess of hydrochloric acid. So therefore we have more surface area and excess of HCl. So therefore this reaction will be the fastest. And how can we come to know about the fastest from the graph? The one that is more steep will be the fastest. So Z is actually experiment 1. In experiment 2, they have taken lumps of calcium carbonate and excess of hydrochloric acid. So therefore this will be slow as compared to the first experiment. So according to the graph, this should be less steep than the first one. So it seems like Y is experiment 2. In experiment 3, calcium carbonate is used in lumps and insufficient HCl is used. It means that the reaction is not complete, so therefore the mass of calcium carbonate unreacted is still present. So therefore balance reading should be higher. So therefore experiment 3 is incomplete reaction. So the mass reading should be higher, so therefore it is X, and X is experiment 3. Let's move toward the options. A says experiment 1 is shown by the curve X. No, it is wrong. B says experiment 1 is shown by the curve Y. It is also incorrect. C says experiment 2 is shown by the curve Y. This one is correct. Experiment 3 is shown by the curve Z. This is incorrect. So answer is C. Question 18. Pieces of zinc are added to aqueous copper 2 sulfate. Which statement is correct? And they have given the equation. In this equation we can see copper is +2, and on product side it has converted into 0 oxidation state, while zinc was 0 in the reactant side and it has converted to +2 on the product side. So it means copper has reduced to copper 0 and zinc has oxidized to +2. So option A, copper +2 is oxidized to copper by gaining electrons. Actually, whenever it moves from +2 to 0, it is not oxidation, it is reduction. Copper +2 is reduced to copper by losing electrons, and reduction is by gaining electrons, so therefore it is incorrect. Zinc solid is oxidized to zinc +2 by losing electrons. This one seems to be correct. Zinc is reduced to zinc +2. This is wrong. So the only correct option is C. Question 19. The oxide of element X reacts with acids to form salts. Which statement about element X or its oxide is correct? Now we have two types of oxides that can react with acids to form salt. First one is basic oxide and second one is amphoteric oxide. Now both basic oxide and amphoteric oxide are made up of metal oxides. So we have to find the correct statement about metal or its oxide. A. X conducts electricity. As X is a metal, so therefore this is correct. X is a non-metal, it is wrong. The oxide is a gas at room temperature and pressure. Now metal oxides are actually solids, they are not gases at room temperature. So therefore this is also incorrect. D says the oxide is covalent. In metal oxide, as we have metal and a non-metal, so therefore ionic bonding is present, so this is also incorrect. Option A is the correct one. Question 20. Nitrogenous fertilizers promote plant growth and crop yield. Which compound contains the greatest mass of nitrogen in 100 grams of fertilizer? So 4 different types of fertilizers are given and all of them contains nitrogen in them. So we have to find the percentage of nitrogen. Let's first find the molecular masses. Now according to the periodic table, the atomic mass of potassium is 39. For nitrogen is 14. For oxygen it is 16. And therefore there are 3 number of oxygen, so 16 into 3 will be 48. So the total mass of potassium nitrate is 101. For ammonium nitrate we have 2 nitrogen atoms, so it will be 14 into 2, 28 for nitrogen. There are 4 hydrogen atoms, so it will be 4, and 3 oxygen atoms, so each oxygen is 16, so for 3 oxygen we will have 48. So therefore total mass is equal to 80. For C we have 2 nitrogen atoms, so therefore it will be 14 into 2, 28 for nitrogens, 8 hydrogen atoms. For sulfur it is 32, and there are 4 oxygen atoms, so it will be 64 for oxygen. Now the total mass is 132. For D, ammonium hydrogen phosphate, we again have 2 nitrogen atoms, so 28 for nitrogen. 8 hydrogen atoms are present in the bracket and 1 is outside the bracket, so therefore there are 9 hydrogen atoms. 1 phosphorus atom, the atomic mass of phosphorus is 31. There are 4 oxygen atoms and the atomic mass for 4 oxygen is 64. So therefore total atomic mass is again 132. Now finding the mass of nitrogen only. In A we have 1 nitrogen atom, so the atomic mass of nitrogen is 14. In B we have 2 nitrogen atoms, so nitrogen mass will be 28. In C we again have 2 nitrogen atoms, so again 28 for nitrogen. In D again 2 nitrogen atoms, so 28. Now finding the mass of nitrogen in 100 grams of fertilizers. In A we have 14 divided by total atomic mass is 101 into given amount is 100, so therefore into 100. It is equal to 13.8 grams. For B, the atomic mass of nitrogen is 28 and the total atomic mass is 80, so therefore 28 divided by 80 into given mass of the fertilizer is 100, so into 100 it comes equal to 35 grams. Similarly for C, we have 28 divided by 132 into 100 grams of fertilizer, so it is equal to 21.2 grams. For D, we have 28 divided by 132 into 100, so again it comes equal to 21.2 grams. So according to these results, we can see that 35 grams is the greatest mass, so therefore answer is B. Question 21. Which aqueous reagent liberates ammonia from ammonium nitrate on warming? For solving this type of question, you should remember one equation, which is that any ammonium salt, it could be ammonium nitrate or any other salt, when it reacts with alkali, on warming it liberates ammonia gas. Now for ammonium salt we have ammonium nitrate, and then the second reactant must be an alkali. A is calcium nitrate, so it is a salt. This is incorrect. B is potassium hydroxide, it is an alkali. C is sodium chloride, again it is a salt, so incorrect. D is sulfuric acid, so acid is not needed. So the correct option is B. Question 22. Which statement about sulfuric acid is correct? A. It is manufactured by heating hydrogen, oxygen and sulfur together. Now in the manufacture of sulfuric acid, the first step is to burn sulfur in the presence of oxygen to form sulfur dioxide. There is no hydrogen involved, so therefore this is incorrect. B says it is used as a battery acid. Now one of the use of sulfuric acid is used in the batteries. C. It is used as a detergent, so this is wrong. D. It is used to neutralize alkaline soils. We don't use sulfuric acid as it is very expensive to neutralize the alkalinity, so therefore this is also incorrect. So the correct option is B. Question 23. The diagram shows part of the periodic table. 3 elements are given. One is lithium, one is chlorine and one is calcium. Which element has the highest proton number? First we have to find the element with the largest proton number, and which element has the largest number of valence electrons. Now in periodic table, elements are arranged on the basis of increasing atomic number, so therefore the element later in the periodic table will have highest proton number. So the element with the highest proton number must be calcium. Now valence electrons can be found in the periodic table by looking at the group number. Higher the group number means higher the number of valence electrons. Lithium is in first group, so it must have 1 valence electron. Calcium is in second group, so it has 2 valence electrons, while chlorine is in 7th group, so it has 7 valence electrons. So the correct option is calcium for atomic number and chlorine for valence shell electrons. So it is B. Question 24. A lump of element X can be cut by a knife. During its reaction with water, X floats and it melts. Now we know that alkali metals have some properties like this. So we have lithium, sodium and potassium. They are less dense than water and therefore they float on the surface of water. And also they are very highly reactive, so the reaction is highly exothermic, so therefore they melt upon reaction. Now among these three, potassium is the softest metal, so it could be easily cut by the knife. Now moving towards the option, we have calcium, copper, magnesium and potassium. So the answer is D. Question 25. Which statement about the properties of some elements is correct? A. All noble gases are unreactive due to having 8 electrons in the outer shells. Now this is incorrect because we have found the compounds of xenon with fluorine atoms, so therefore all are not unreactive, some are unreactive. B. The group 7 element astatine is expected to be a black solid at room temperature. Now as we know that in group 7 what happens that the elements become less volatile down in the group, so fluorine and chlorine are gases, while bromine is a low boiling liquid, iodine is a solid and astatine must also be solid. The color also gets darker down in the group, so iodine is purple, so therefore astatine must be black. So B seems to be correct option. C. The reactivity of elements in both group 1 and group 7 increase down the group. Now this is true for group 1, but in group 7 the reactivity decreases down the group. D. When aqueous chlorine is added to aqueous potassium bromide, there is no change in color. So let's add chlorine to potassium bromide. As chlorine is more reactive than bromine, so therefore chlorine can easily displace bromine, so it will form KCl and Br2, and Br2 is brown in color, so therefore there is a change in color. So this is incorrect. So the only correct option is B. Question 26. Which diagram shows the structure of an alloy? Alloy is actually a mixture of metals, so we have different metals present. So the size of the atoms must be different. A shows two different types of elements being combined together, so it could be A. B shows the structure of graphite, so it is not an alloy, this is a pure substance, so it is not B. C shows the structure of an ionic compound, so C is also incorrect. And D shows the structure of a pure element which is made up of one type of atoms, as the size of the atoms are similar. So the only correct option is A. Question 27. Which element can only be extracted from its ore using electrolysis? Now electrolysis is used for those metals that are highly reactive and whose oxygen cannot be reduced by carbon alone. In the reactivity series we have potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminum, and they are all more reactive than carbon. So therefore carbon cannot reduce the oxides of these elements, so therefore electrolysis is needed. So it could be calcium. Copper is below from carbon, so therefore copper can be reduced by carbon. Lead can also be reduced by carbon, silver by carbon too. So the only correct option is A. Question 28. The equations show reactions taking place in blast furnace, in which reaction is an acidic impurity present in an iron ore removed. A. Carbon plus oxygen carbon dioxide. Now this carbon is provided in the form of coke, so therefore it is not the impurity present. Again this coke reacts with carbon dioxide to form carbon monoxide, so therefore it is not the impurity. In C we have iron oxide plus carbon monoxide, so therefore this reaction takes place further. This is the third step of this chemical reaction. It reacts to form iron and carbon dioxide. Again there is no impurity. In D we have calcium carbonate that reacts with silicon dioxide to form calcium silicate plus carbon dioxide. Now in this reaction this is silicon dioxide and it is present as an impurity in iron ore. And this impurity is removed in the form of calcium silicate, that is also called the slag. So therefore correct option is D. Question 29. Which diagram correctly shows the conditions necessary for the rusting of iron? and also the metal that can be used to prevent rusting by sacrificial protection. Now there are two parts of this reaction. In the first part they have asked about the rusting of iron. So we know that for rusting two things are must. One is H2O and second is oxygen. Second part of the question says about sacrificial protection. So we know that any element that is more reactive than iron could be used for sacrificial protection. Now what happens in sacrificial protection is that the more reactive metal actually reacts in the place of iron. So therefore iron is not rusted until the other metal is sacrificed completely. Now in the reactivity series we have calcium, magnesium, aluminum, zinc and then iron. As these are more reactive than iron, so they could be used for sacrificial protection. Now moving towards option A says oxygen only. So for rusting we need water as well, so this is incorrect. B says oxygen only, this is also incorrect. C says oxygen and water vapors, so this is correct. But the sacrificial protection cannot be done by copper because copper is less reactive than iron. In part D we have oxygen and water for rusting, and magnesium metal can be used for sacrificial protection as it is more reactive than iron. So correct option is D. Question 30. In the electrolysis of molten aluminum oxide, which statement is correct? A. The molar ratio of aluminum to oxygen gas formed is 1:2, as the formula of aluminum oxide is Al2O3, so therefore the ratio is 2:3. So this is incorrect. B. The molar ratio of aluminum to oxygen gas is 3:4. This is also incorrect. C. Oxygen gas is formed at the anode. Now we have two types of ions. One is aluminum ion. Second is oxide ion. Now aluminum ion is cation and cation moves towards the cathode, while oxide ion is anion and anion moves towards the anode. So oxygen gas is formed at the anode, so this is correct. Reduction occurs at the anode. At anode oxygen loses 2 electrons, so therefore this is not reduction, it is oxidation. So D is incorrect. The correct option is C. Question 31. Which row correctly compares carbon dioxide and methane? Now the formula of carbon dioxide is CO2 and for methane we have CH4. A. Both contain carbon, so it is correct because carbon is present in carbon dioxide and it is also present in methane. So it could be A or B. Both are described as a greenhouse gas. Yes, this is also correct because carbon dioxide and CH4 both have the property to absorb the radiations and therefore increase the temperature of the earth. So this is wrong, this is correct. Both lower the pH of water when they dissolve in it. No, this is incorrect because CH4 is insoluble in water while carbon dioxide is soluble. So all three options are correct. So therefore answer is B. Question 32. Seawater is not safe to drink. It can be converted into drinkable water by desalination. What does desalination involve? Now desalination means removal of salt. Option A. Adding chlorine to kill bacteria. This does not remove any salt. B is boiling the water to sterilize it. Again, this is killing bacteria. C is removing the salt by filtration. Now salt is a soluble substance, so therefore it cannot be separated by filtration. So this is incorrect. D is separating the water by distillation. What happens in distillation is that the water is boiled to its boiling point and then condensed back to the liquid form. So therefore salt is left behind, so this is the correct option. So answer is D. Question 33. Fats are essential components of the human diet. The diagram shows a fat molecule. This is the molecule of fat. Which description of this fat molecule is correct? Let's first find out the functional group present in the fat molecule. So we have C double bond OO functional group. Again, the same functional group is present. Now R C double bond O R If this functional group is present, it means it is ester. It can also be written the other way around like this, ROC double bond R. Still, this is the molecule of ester. We can also see that among carbon and carbon only single bonds are present, so for single bonds we can say that it is a saturated molecule. If there were double bond, it would be unsaturated. Moving towards the options, A is saturated carboxylic acid. Now it is a saturated compound, but it is not carboxylic acid, it is ester. B says saturated ester, so this is correct. C is unsaturated carboxylic acid, so both are incorrect. D is unsaturated ester, so only ester part is correct. So option B is the correct answer. Question 34. A molecule of compound C4H6 is shown. We can see it is an alkene because there are double bonds present. This molecule undergoes an addition reaction with excess bromine and an addition reaction with steam. One molecule of C4H6 reacts with how much of bromine when C4H6 reacts with steam dash is formed? Which words complete caps 1 and 2? Now bromine attaches itself to the double bond carbon in this way that one bromine attaches to one carbon atom and second bromine attaches to second carbon atom, while the double bond is converted into single covalent bond. Again, this is same for another molecule. We have one bromine on one carbon and second bromine on second carbon atom. So therefore 4 atoms of bromine are required. So it means 2 bromine molecules must be present. So option 1 must be 2 molecules. For steam, the formula is H2O and there are 2 parts, one is H and second is OH. Now they are attached similarly to the double bond. One carbon atom attaches itself to hydrogen atom while the other carbon atoms attaches itself to OH. Similar is for this double bond. So therefore in the product we have OH group present and OH belongs to alcohol group. So it must be an alcohol, not a carboxylic acid. So therefore correct option is C. Question 35. The molecules of 2 hydrocarbon compounds X and Y each contain only 4 carbon atoms. X is saturated and Y is unsaturated. Which statements are correct? Now saturated means that there are single covalent bonds between carbon and carbon, and unsaturated means the presence of double bond between 2 carbon atoms. As there are 4 carbon atoms, so X is an alkane and the general formula for alkane is CnH2n plus 2. So the formula for 4 carbon atoms must be C4H4 into 2, 8 plus 2, 10. So it is C4H10. And Y is an unsaturated compound, so it is alkene. The general formula for alkene is CnH2n. So for 4 carbon atom it should be C4H8. 1. Under suitable conditions Y polymerizes. Now Y consists of double bonds, so therefore it can undergo addition polymerization, so this is correct. 2. The complete combustion of 1 mole of Y produces more carbon dioxide than the complete combustion of 1 mole of X. Let's find out by balanced chemical equation. For X we can write C4H10. Combustion in the presence of oxygen, so it forms carbon dioxide and water. For Y we have C4H8 combines with oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water. Now balancing these chemical equations, we have 4 carbon atoms on the reactant side, so we can write 4 with CO2. We have 10 hydrogen atoms, so we can write 5 with hydrogen so that it becomes on the product side. Now there are 8 oxygen atoms in CO2 and 5 with H2O. So 8 and 5 is 13. So we can write 6.5 with oxygen. For alkene we have 4 carbon atoms, so balancing carbon dioxide. 8 hydrogen atoms, so we can write 4 with water, so it becomes 8 hydrogen. And we have 8 oxygen atoms in CO2 and 4 in H2O. So therefore there are 12 oxygen atoms, so we can write 6 with O2. Now according to these balanced chemical equation, we know that 1 mole of C4H10 produces 4 moles of carbon dioxide. Similarly, 1 mole of alkene C4H8 produces 4 moles of carbon dioxide. So therefore complete combustion makes equal amount of carbon dioxide, so this is wrong. 3. One molecule of Y contains 1 more hydrogen atoms than one molecule of X. In Y we have 2 less hydrogen atoms as compared to X, so therefore 3 is also incorrect. So only option 1 is correct, so therefore answer is A. Question 36. Which conversions involve oxidation? 1. Ethanol into carbon dioxide and water. Ethanol is C2H5OH, and when oxidized in the presence of KMnO4, it converts into carbon dioxide along with water molecules. So this is correct. 2 is ethanol to ethanoic acid. So we have C2H5OH and it is oxidized to form CH3COOH. So as you can see, there is increase in oxygen atoms, so therefore this is also correct. 3 is ethene to polyethene. That is just a polymerization and it does not involve the increase in oxygen, so therefore this is wrong. So only correct options are 1 and 2, so therefore answer is C. Question 37. Compound T reacts with magnesium, aqueous sodium hydroxide and ethanol. Which group does T contain? In A, we can see that alcohol group is present and alcohol group does not react with magnesium or sodium hydroxide or ethanol, so therefore A is wrong. B is an alkene because of the presence of double bond, and alkene also does not react with magnesium, sodium hydroxide or ethanol, so B is also incorrect. So both A and B are incorrect. C is carboxylic acid functional group. As we know that carboxylic acid can react with metal to form salt and hydrogen. It can also react with sodium hydroxide to form salt and water, and it can react with ethanol to form ester because ethanol is an alcohol and alcohol combines with carboxylic acid to make ester. So C seems to be correct option. D is the presence of ester group. So ester group does not react with all these three, so therefore D is also incorrect. So the correct option is C. Question 38. Which type of reaction could be used in the polymerization of ethene? Now this is the one molecule of ethene. We have 2 carbon atoms and 4 hydrogen atoms. Monomers like this can repeat themselves over and over in addition polymerization to form a polymer. And double bond is converted into single bond. This structure is continuous and it goes on and on. Now this is ethene and it is converted into polyethene by addition polymerization. So option A is addition, option B condensation, as no water molecule is formed, so therefore it is not condensation. C is cracking. Cracking means the breaking of a hydrocarbon into smaller fractions. As we are increasing the number of carbon atoms, so therefore it is not cracking. D is esterification, the formation of ester. There is no ester formed in this product. So the correct option is A. Question 39. Insulin is a protein made in the human body. Which statement about this insulin are correct? 1. It is a condensation polymer. As we know that proteins are made up of amino acids, so amino acids come together and condense to form the long chain protein. So this is correct. 2. It is a synthetic polymer. Synthetic means that is man-made. As it is produced in the human body, so it means it is a natural polymer. 3. When hydrolyzed, it produces only one monomer. As protein is made up of more than one amino acid, so therefore one monomer is not formed. Actually, many monomers are formed. 4. It contains amide linkages. In amino acid polymerization, what happens that this type of linkage is present, RC double bond O NH. We have carbon double bonded with oxygen and nitrogen single bonded with hydrogen and also with another alkyl group. So therefore this is correct. So option 1 and 4 are correct, so therefore it is C. Question 40. Which statement about polymers is correct? A. Nylon and terylene are produced by addition polymerization. Now this is wrong because nylon and terylene both are produced by condensation polymerization. B. Nylon and terylene both contain the amide linkages. Now this is wrong because both does not contain the same linkage. In nylon, amide linkage is present, which is RC double bond O NH and R, while in terylene ester linkage is present, which is RC double bond O O R. C. Simple sugars are produced by hydrolyzing proteins. Now when proteins are hydrolyzed, actually amino acids are formed. Simple sugars are not formed. So this is incorrect. D. Starch contains the element carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Now the general formula for starch is C6H10O5 and number of times. So D is correct. So the answer is D. Thank you for watching. If this paper was useful, then please subscribe to this channel. You can also share this video with your friends. See you in the next one. Till then, take care.